Welcome back to the bench. I'm Judge Lisa, and this is where I share the cases that haunt me, the ones that defy simple legal interpretation and demand true moral courage. In my time presiding over countless civil and criminal matters, I have learned that the deepest pain in my courtroom rarely comes from strangers. It comes from family. Today's case, Sterling Industries v. Diana Vance, was a civil suit for embezzlement, but the human cost was immeasurable. It was a case of a father suing his only daughter. The plaintiff was Robert Sterling, a proud 72-year-old man who built his manufacturing company from the ground up. He started with one machine shop and grew it over 50 years into a regional success, a legacy, not just a business. The defendant? His daughter, Diana Vance, 45, who held the keys to his kingdom as the head of payroll and accounts. I watched Mr. Sterling take the stand, and I saw a man who had lost far more than money. His voice was steady when he detailed the facts, but his eyes, they were the eyes of a man who'd witnessed a funeral for a future he'd spent his life building. Diana's crime was meticulous and cold-blooded. For 5 long years, she manipulated the payroll system. She didn't steal a lump sum. She stole silently, month after month, through what the audit referred to as a ghost employee. She had reactivated the file of a retired worker and channeled a full executive salary, around $5,000 a week, directly into her personal, hidden account. The total damage? A staggering $3.2 million. When the outside auditor presented the evidence in my court, the reality was sickening. This theft wasn't about desperation. It was about greed and profound entitlement. The prosecutor projected her spending onto the courtroom screen: receipts for a ski chalet in Aspen, $500,000 in jewelry, and a year's tuition for a private school that her father was already paying for. The funds she stole weren't merely from her father's profits. They were money that should have been reinvested in crucial infrastructure, safety updates, and most cruelly, the livelihoods of her father's loyal staff. I remember the look on the faces of the Sterling Industries workers who attended the hearings. Men and women who had dedicated decades to that company, sitting there, watching their future get counted out in designer shoes. Deanna's defense was built entirely on entitlement. She sat before me, dressed impeccably, arguing that she was owed the money, claiming her father undervalued her skills and intelligence. She stated with absolute conviction that she was merely taking her future inheritance early. I listened patiently, but internally, I felt a deep sense of revulsion. When she testified, she attempted to paint herself as a victim demanding respect. I sternly reminded her that respect is earned by integrity, not purchased with stolen funds. That was the first time I saw a flicker of something other than rehearsed emotion in her eyes. It was raw annoyance that her performance wasn't working. Then came the twist that sealed her fate and solidified my ruling. A twist that forced me to recess court just so I could absorb the depth of the betrayal. Diana's mother, Mr. Sterling's wife, Anne, took the stand. This woman was clearly shattered, the physical embodiment of a family's civil war. She revealed a detail that Diana had deliberately concealed. Mr. Sterling, unbeknownst to everyone outside of payroll, which Diana controlled, had established a generous trust fund for every single long-term employee upon his retirement. A way to ensure their financial security. Diana knew about this fund. The money she stole was not just company cash. She had strategically drained funds earmarked for the very same pool that would have provided her loyal coworkers with their retirement security. It wasn't just a crime against her father. It was a crime against the entire Sterling Industries family. I realized then that this required a judgment that went beyond standard sentencing. The betrayal was complete and absolute. I found Ms. Vance guilty of every charge. The court recognized the immense damage to the business, to the employees, and to the psychological well-being of Mr. Sterling. My job was to restore not just the money, but the moral balance. I looked directly at Diana, her defiance finally cracking under the weight of her mother's testimony. I delivered the sentence. First, you are sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. The severity of the sentence was essential to reflect the calculated nature of the 5-year-long crime. Second, you must pay full restitution of $3.2 million. But then came the final measure, the ruling I believe served the true justice of this case. Ms. Vance, the name Sterling represents loyalty, hard work, and integrity. You have shown yourself to be deserving of none of these things. Therefore, upon your release, you are legally forbidden from ever using the name Sterling again in any professional capacity. Furthermore, all access to any family trust funds, present and future, is permanently revoked. You will not profit from the name you disgraced. Diana was stunned. The price was the loss of her identity and the final barrier of inherited privilege. As Mr. Sterling watched his daughter being led away, I saw not victory, but relief. Relief that the justice system could, at last, protect his legacy and his loyal employees. That is the kind of justice I strive for every single day on this bench.